Hey there. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, right? It's Wednesday,
It's
July 29th of 2026, and welcome to the Dev Talk Show. I'm Chris Gomez, and right next to me, right over there, in fact, is my co-host Rich Ross. I got that right. That's amazing.
I got that
Are you?
wrong. Why is that?
Oh, did you? Yeah.
That
It's
way?
because sometimes we get flipped, and it's interesting that that all
Yeah,
works. But how are you doing this morning, Rich?
doing well, doing well.
Good.
Coffee's going, so I'm happy.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So, we've had summer going and had a little bit of vacation time. I know I certainly have. I think you have too. Um, but definitely excited to get back at some interesting ideas. And this episode is, I think, going to be the beginning of an idea that I don't know if we've directly addressed it on the show, um, but it's an idea I've had for a little while about the use of AI and LLMs and agents and all of these things that they're moving rapidly. And I think sometimes for someone like me, I don't know how you feel in the audience, and I would love to hear from people, is if you wonder what to do with all of this stuff. And I have asked that question many times over the last couple years, because the early demos of tooling, like it doesn't necessarily Foundry. I think the early demos that we saw of cognitive services and so on, a lot of times related to, hey, let's build a chatbot that you can talk to about this retail store.
Yeah,
That was a common one. Or help you with a particular piece of knowledge, like maybe it's a chatbot that customer service chatbot. I'm sure, in fact, I have a feeling that was probably target number one for the real world. um, and I've always wanted to know what else can we do. And
yeah,
so, I think I've wanted to explore something for a little while, and we're going to do that today. So,
yeah. And I will say, we've been exploring internally, like as part of trying to figure out ways to take advantage of things like Copilot and GitHub Copilot to make our the stuff we have to do for business as usual stuff that just needs to get done, right? Emails, all those kind of things. And what we've been doing is really looking at skills instead of an agent. Skills is a way of going and doing a lot of that work for us. Like go grab the transcripts, go grab the whiteboards, go pull it all together and drop it in a folder. Now I've got everything accumulated in that one place. Now, if you automate that, that's an agent, right? So an agent can run those skills. So it's oftentimes it's a question I get asked, which is it? Is it an agent or is it a skill? And usually the skill is kind of like that workflow pattern to run through it, and the agent is the thing that pulls those things together. Which that's how I've been pitching it. So just
yeah,
I
and I
think
think
everybody's thinking about some ways to take advantage of the tech.
that's actually a really good way of putting it. Um, and it kind of dovetails into a piece of documentation that is part of Microsoft Learn, and we'll have to get into the show notes here. But let me see if I can go ahead and add it real quick. Where I think here's a different attempt to try and start to define what these things mean is so in Foundry, um, well, I'm sorry, this is actually Copilot Studio documentation.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's pretty similar in Foundry, in that Foundry agents can but what I liked was this table. This may be other documentation, but it's talking about what skills are and why
Mhm.
use them. And then this table I really liked. Um,
That's good. It sees well.
Instructions, uh, define general agent behavior and personality, knowledge data the agent can reference. So if we think about the pizza bot that we built, the instructions kind of taught it things like, hey, you're dealing with ordering pizza, don't do anything else. And we saw that come through every now and again when I would try to trick it into fixing my flat on my bicycle or something like that.
Right.
Knowledge was data. We had those markdown files, one per store. We never told the agent, here's what you can expect in the markdown files, and here's the format they're in, because while they were in a general format, like they're in a format that I would say only a human could love, in that there was a title, there was an address, there was a description, but it didn't say like seating, indoor, outdoor. It wasn't a JSON response. It wasn't
Right.
structured.
Yeah.
And yet this knowledge was taken in, and you could ask it questions like, show me how many locations in the US have outdoor seating. And it would just, without even, you just go through and say, well, okay, well, Milwaukee's out in the US and Philadelphia's US, and it would figure it out. And then the last part, skills, reusable task specific capabilities. So that, like, I think what you were pointing out is kind of that question, when is it instructions and when is it skills? And you took act in this particular project to try to create a skill to do something. And I think it applies. I think it really does, because then the actual, it's reusable what you've created. So to try and avoid, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to kind of clarify. So the stuff in the middle, the knowledge, the tools, yes, those are things that we can kind of include. But I think the two important pieces are the instructions, and we've had instructions forever, kind of almost to the beginning of when we started to, how can we get better context around what it is? Because we couldn't give the whole code base per se, right? We gave a couple files that were open. So the instructions were a way to kind of give that overview of, this is the project I'm working on, or me as a personal set of instructions. This is how I do things, or I write in C#, and I want to use, Azure for my stuff, right? That high level stuff. And the reason it's high level is because instructions, every time you submit that prompt, instructions are carried along. The difference is skills are only included when somehow they get noticed that the agent needs to include them, either because I've said a keyword, hey, go and create this email for me, right? Some kind of a trigger phrase, or I specifically say, go do the follow-up email, right? Those things now bring that skill into context. So those things have different uses, and you want to keep the instructions kind of light and focused on the task that you're doing, essentially. We may want to think about that for this too, because those might be, you might in the instructions have information that's reused that we could then not have to include in each individual skill.
Right. And, I feel like in some sense, instructions are not that different than prompts. It sort of probably was born out of the idea that, man, our prompt is getting large and I'm repeating 50% of it. And again, I'm not even really saying that this is how it really evolved, but just from a mental point of view, like a mental model, is that I guess I could just have every prompt say, I want you to write your code following these standards. I want you to follow the solid principles, and I want you to embrace vertical slice architecture, or something like that. That the prompts were just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and so, oh, hey, let me put some of this stuff in instructions. But it's not all that much different, because to your point, it gets shipped along every time.
Right.
Whereas a skill, it's saying like, well, you know what you're talking about. What I'm being asked to do now is write code. So let me look at the relevant skills about how you want code written, or even drilling down a little bit more, how to work with a particular ORM. You have some skills telling me how you like to work with Dapper.
Right.
You have some skills telling me how you like your Docker files to, how you like your containers to be laid out in Docker files. That's just something special that is really important to you. So to try and drill away from the abstract, I have been working for a little while on this idea. And let me see if I can talk about what this is here that we're looking at. So this is a ledger that pertains to a homeowner in an HOA that is behind on obligations, most likely HOA dues and the fees associated with not keeping up and things like that. Now, I happen to be the treasurer of an HOA. It's a much simpler HOA, much simpler. I thank goodness for me personally, I don't have situations like this, but I know of some other HOAs that do. And I know of some other treasurers that are kind of sinking under this weight, and especially, believe it or not, even like attorneys. And it turns out it's because there are, of course, there are rules about collections. There are rules about state by state about how to categorize these fees and how to accrue them over time, how to charge interest on them. When somebody pays, how do you apply those payments? There's statutes that will say how to do it. It sounds simple once you hear it. And it's, from what I can understand, the state I live in and a few other states that I've been looking at are almost identical in this respect. In that, a particular HOA might assess, just assess their typical assessment. Maybe it's monthly, maybe it's quarterly. We pay X amount. There's also the concept of a special assessment, which is like, look, something happened and we need to pay something that was never planned for. So therefore, everybody, if you can pitch in a little bit, well, not if you can, you're going to pitch in a little bit. And that's another assessment. Okay, so then your assessments, you could be late and perhaps you charge a late fee. Well, that's another class that you take care of. What if you charge interest on what's late? That's a third class. And then finally, if you have to take legal action and you hire an attorney and they have fees, that is a fourth class that you can be assessed. It can be charged against your residence, against your account. I'm trying to be careful to keep the verbiage as correct as possible, because the assessments are, you owe $100 a quarter, a month, whatever.
Right.
Okay, so those are the four classes. And so now if somebody, was late, you're charging interest, possibly daily. And when somebody pays, perhaps the original amount was like $500 and you've started filing late fees, you started doing interest, and heck, you needed an attorney's demand letter, and that demand letter might have cost you like $600, believe it or not.
Right.
And so somebody goes ahead and pays you like $1,000. Well, it's not covering the whole bit. So how does that get applied? And there are rules about how that's applied. And it turns out that actually, your own assessment is last.
Yes.
So, but, I can't remember. In fact, it should be in my instructions here, but I can't remember if it's attorney fees first and then, or if it's attorney fees third, and then it's like interest first, late fees second, attorney fees third. That might've been what it is. And then your own principal. So I knew of some folks that were creating Excel spreadsheets to try to deal with this. And one in particular realized that their spreadsheet was not correct. They were using it, but it wasn't correct, and totally inadvertent. And I kind of thought to myself, like, boy, this feels like something that could be a good piece of software.
Right.
And so I have been working on this delinquency tracker here. And yes, I have been using an agent to help me build it, or agents, and actually the Brady Gaster squad, but that's not what I really want to concentrate on right now. What I want to concentrate on is that, so you start down this path of, oh, okay, well, actually, this isn't the best way to do it. Let me go ahead and run it. You start down this path of, okay, well, now I have something to help me track this. And as days go by, it'll just accrue the interest for me and it'll apply the payments correctly. But I felt very strongly, as I was beginning to watch people use it, that a second problem was emerging. And that problem was the time it takes to fill out your own software with this information is not, I mean, it's significant. And let's just say you're a lawyer representing HOAs, you probably have an assistant that is going ahead and entering this stuff. And boy, you know what, this is the first time I've run this in a while. So I happen to have server symbols on, which I like, because that way I can just debug right into Entity Framework or whatever. But since I haven't run it in a while, it's all coming out of the cache and being downloaded. You can see that's happening down here in the lower left corner. So I usually try to do this before the show, but I'd forgotten. So in any case, here we go. It's popping up over here. So let's bring it up. Okay. So, excuse the fact that I'm not the greatest designer in the world, but here's an example where, and this was totally made up, where somebody had a Q1 assessment of $450, their late fee at $25. Then they only paid like $100.
Hmm.
And then the attorney sent a demand letter. And so what's happening over here in the balance section is, and there's a little tooltip that's coming up to say, okay, well, the principal category is 450. And then as I scroll down, the principal category now is still 450, but the late fees are $25. And then this is where it's getting interesting because the payment was allocated. The late fees were paid. $25 were paid to late fees, but principal, $65.46 was paid to principal. So I think something was going on with interest there that wasn't obvious.
Hmm.
And it's saying here that like it's saying here, when I click on this, the selected row, the payment allocation was $65.46 to principal. I'm not sure why it says 0 for interest. That feels like a bug, because clearly there's a couple dollars missing. And then at the end, we can see the interest is accrued so that today, or well, not today, but as of the last line item, there was $55 in interest because this has been going on for over a year. And you can basically add a charge and a payment here, and you can generate a payoff statement. And the idea is that I could say, okay, I could actually come in here and I can generate the payoff statement so that I could send this out and say, okay, as long as you pay, you may have done this with a car loan, something like that.
Right.
So as long as you pay by the 10th, then you owe 9/20/16. And clearly I want this to all be, customizable with any kind of letterhead or logos that someone wants. And I feel that this is something that an assistant today is spending time doing, whether it's generating demand letters, generating payoff statements, generating legal pleadings that are all just solid boilerplate stuff. But somebody is still filling this out.
Right.
And what I came to realize is that sometimes the ledgers look like this one, multiple pages.
Hmm.
And so you have an assistant go through and figure out, okay, well, this was a finance charge. This is a finance charge. That's interest. This is a fee. Okay. This is what we paid the attorney. Okay, fine. Then they paid a little bit. And importing this is a time-consuming task.
Right.
There's no doubt today that most attorneys' offices will just bill you the time. But I've always had a philosophy that what if we stop thinking about it as time and thinking about it for its value?
Hmm.
So I'm not saying that you still don't charge for the work, absolutely, but it's the value of the work. And if it only takes 5 minutes to do it, it doesn't matter to me. The value is still X.
Interesting.
And attorneys don't often work this way because they've always worked in a world of my time is what I bill for.
Right.
But
Billable
in
hours.
the healthcare world has become fee for service. It didn't used to be, but you got to go back quite a few decades there.
Yeah.
But it's become fee for service. And so just the simple fact of like providing you with a tetanus shot, there's a fee for that. And so now as an organization, you are working to try to optimize that process so that way you keep more of the fee and don't put less of it back into just the overhead of running whatever practice you're doing.
Right. Because there's lots of work still to be done. So
yes.
If I don't have to spend as much time on this and I can do things elsewhere, that helps overall.
Right. And so I have had this idea that instead of doing what we did in the past, which developers would do, which was come up with importers and exporters.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you've probably seen it. Your bank would say like, hey, export to Quicken. Oh, export to QuickBooks. And it might have both buttons. I've noticed that this stuff is disappearing because more and more of your online banks have internal tooling, or people just don't do this stuff anymore. So you'd have to sit down and write that.
Right.
And then what happens when the folks at QuickBooks change a format of some kind? Then your importer doesn't work anymore, or your export doesn't work anymore. And to me, this is one of those processes that we hire an assistant and we train them and we say, hey, and we don't have to train them all that hard. You know, you're a smart person. When you're reading this, you make decisions as to, oh, that must be interest. And wouldn't it be nice if it did a lot of the work for the assistant so that the assistant can concentrate on other tasks that aren't boilerplate? So that was my idea. And I've been working on this how to go about doing this for a while. But I think what you had said is you have some ideas that I'd love to try on how to work to build a skill that could both be used with an agent that we might host in Foundry, but it doesn't matter where it's hosted, and also could just be used with Copilot or something.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to, agentify it and put it up somewhere, right? There's no reason you couldn't just call the skill and say, here's the file, go do the thing.
Right. So what I didn't know is if we felt that there were better models to use, or if that's a secondary, maybe that's another show, or how I might go about starting this. I don't, maybe Copilot, because first of all, I have a PDF here.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that every time it'll be a PDF. It could be an email.
Yeah. Yeah. So so one of the things we can try is if we gave the PDF to, one of the models, and probably I would want to do so. And here's where my thought process would be, right? And each one of these situations is a little bit different. So I'm kind of thinking about it as we go through it. We want to use a model that is less about reasoning and more about just, I've got this thing to do and I just need to move things from, I've just got to focus on the goal and not think through a lot of things. And we can try this with a couple models and see what happens. But the idea might be that when we just give the PDF to the model and say, hey, can you pull the rows from the table out and display them, basically just print them out in your as output, so we can see what it looks like and see how it goes. And maybe that's the first start.
Right. Okay. Now, do you think this is in Copilot or maybe up in Foundry by picking up?
No, I don't think we need to use Foundry. I think we could do, you could do Copilot CLI. I think we might get better output if we did it like in VS Code and use the chat window.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because we could even say, export it to a document instead of the window too.
Let me see where this is because I've already forgotten. And then I have a samples folder. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to confine this to the samples folder. And then I can run code from here. Of course, I think I'm running it as administrator because that was an administrator window, which will just mean that I can't easily open another one. But that's okay. And then, so we've got a chat window over here. And
maybe just give
you want
it
to start
PDF,
a plan
right?
or
I would say
just
keep
give
it
it
in
the PDF. Okay. No problem. So let's see, that's this plus, right, to add context. And okay, so I just want to follow it through. I don't want to jump too quickly. So what I did is I went ahead and opened, I selected the file, and VS Code is going like, hey, I don't know what to do with PDFs. That's cool. But I was able to click this plus here to add context, and it showed up as a recently open file. Of course, I think this is just saying that VS Code doesn't support it, I believe. I don't think it's saying that.
Yeah, I mean, your agent is set to auto. I would probably want to give it, let it choose auto and see what it comes back with.
Let's see. Okay. So let's see.
A lot of this is just experimentation. It's all good.
It's a ledger of assessments. Also known as dues, late fees for paying those assessments, for not paying those assessments. This is where I suppose I'm still a typer, but I need to figure out. I see people using their voice, and I'm having so much trouble switching to that.
So window key H, if you want to try it, will be. I will also say that I think there is in the VS Code Insiders, potentially, there's some stuff coming there. Should look that up.
But what I'd say, we would like a text file.
The PDF, this PDF, but yeah, or a CSV.
Okay. I love how I'm going to give it the choice. A text file or CSV file with.
I'm giving you the choice. I don't know that I would give it the choice.
The same information, but including the additional classification of which type of entry per line item. I guess I can also, there's one type of entry that I missed when I was saying this. Are also entries associated with payments that the account is making along the way. Okay. All right. Sometimes I like to ask, like, what else should I be thinking about here or something? But I think instead we'll say, do we want to say, can you create that CSV file? Can you create a CSV file, or can you create such a file?
I'll put the contents of the PDF as CSV.
Okay. So here's where we're heading with this, right? Is that working in Copilot chat can eventually lead to, I like how Copilot is just going crazy here. Sure, why not? Oh, I see. Yes, let's just keep on. Oh, actually, no, it looks like it did all that stuff.
Okay.
Okay. So in any case, the way I kind of envision this is I'm a human being. I don't need an importer to read a PDF.
Right.
When it's displayed on screen. If you gave it to me in binary, I'm in trouble.
Right.
I don't need an importer to read a Word document, an email, to listen to a voicemail, to I don't know, read text of any kind. And I would like to get to a place where theoretically, whatever is thrown at a particular account is just, you have this assistant that previously a human was using its own ability to infer to do the right thing. That's interesting. That like, hey, why don't you install an extension and make it easier to use? Yeah, why not? It's got 5 stars and 122 million downloads.
Okay.
So obviously it's trustworthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. And my feeling is that we already do this today as people. We infer. We don't have to train somebody now to open this PDF. You know, I mean, generally we don't have to train people to do that anymore. I kind of feel like, however, though, it's just this huge bit of time, and I would like to figure out how to help that assistant get more done. And you know, it's not about saying the assistant doesn't have value. The assistant now has value in concentrating on what isn't going to be easy to infer. Do I need to file a pleading? Do I need to generate a payoff statement? What have I been asked to do? Right. So let's see what we say. I'm going to parse the ledger into structured rows and create a CSV in your workspace with an added classification column. I'll first confirm the target folder and write the file. Mapped each ledgered row. I've created the CSV, created. So it's like, yeah, I'm good. Added classification field with categories such as, okay, so it's interesting that there's all these categories, which isn't what I want, because I need it to be certain types, but it's fine. Some memo values were already truncated, so those remain truncated exactly as provided. That's cool. So here, let's see what we ended up with here. We got a CSV with headlines, and then invoice payment. We got the date, the amount, and then the little status and what it is. This is very interesting. It might be interesting to me in the future to go through and say, okay, how accurate was it? But
Right.
it could be pretty remarkable to be like, oh wow, I mean, this is on the money, right? And that would be great. Now, what do we know what model was used? Does it say? Because we used auto.
So what's that second line? Did it get the little negative sign?
This here?
I'm sorry.
Are you talking about the one?
No, when you, so the second line.
Or are you talking about my file?
The third line of the invoice, right? Yeah. So the second line there, the amount is minus 250.
Yes.
Which is kind of. And it got it. Okay. All right.
Now, figuring out how to massage this for the application could take some work.
Yeah.
So I suppose you could argue, in fact, I think that's what it's saying here, is that the balance forward was 250, somebody paid 250, and then that's when really the issues started, I think, because we were at zero. In fact, we were at zero once again. So frankly, another interesting part of this instructions or skill would be to say, we really only need this from zero onward. It's totally fine with me that somebody printing this out from their application might just pick an arbitrary start date, or that's fine. Who cares? But what's important is from this moment on is when the collections issues begin. Because I don't see any other zeros. So that's a first. That's something to try to improve on. Secondly, I think I really want it to strictly interpret each of these categories. So I don't know if now's the time to start with the skill and then refine the skill. Because
start with skill and refine.
If we created a skill that produced this exact same thing, then I could say, now hold on, I can't have you making up these categories. Like I appreciate it. That was really nice of you. But what have I done? But there's these categories that you got to fit into one of these categories. You got to be an assessment, a late fee, interest, attorney fee, or payment. That's it.
Right.
Or credit, payment or credit, I guess. So to me, I don't even care if it's call that payment, call it credit.
So for me, that's an instruction, because that's going to go across. If you think of the skills being the workflow or the utility that does something, I shouldn't have to put that in every one of those skills. I could put that in my base instructions, like all categorization. Here are the list of categories we use for any of the entries that happen. Boom, 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 but the description next to them if you want, right? But then it's centralized. It does come across with every prompt or every time you submit, but it still should be lightweight enough that you get the reuse, because I don't have to worry about making sure it's in every skill and it's consistent across every skill or anything like that.
Okay. So do we think the next step is to ask it to help us create instructions or skills to do this process?
I would say that's kind of where I would go, right? This is a great start. Let's create a common set of instructions that we can use across a collection of skills we might define for our purposes. And this is one way to do this. Maybe another way might be, hey, let's just create the skill to do what we just did. And then as we get a couple of skills, say, okay, looking across these couple of skills we have, pull out common things and throw them in the instructions.
No, I'm not going to do that. Okay. So This is a good start. There would be people out there arguing that I'm wasting tokens there. I would like to create a common skills to do this so that we can use it in the future without describing everything. Let's host that skill here in the, well, not here, in the samples folder that is opened in this VS Code window. Okay.
Right. So you may want to make sure, well, you already said that.
I already hit enter. Well, what should I have done? I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hopefully what it will do is it should understand that instruction, skills, prompts, agents all reside in a .github folder. Each one of those resides in a subfolder to the .github folder. So hopefully that's what it will create.
Yeah, currently it's looking to see what's already in here, and it's like, well, you didn't do a whole lot, but I'm going to create a standard skill MD and put it in a dedicated folder. And I'm now creating a reusable skilled package, which we should see popping up. Oh, in fact, here it is.
Just did skills. Okay. But that's fine. It should be skills. And then there's a folder for the name of the skill.
Yep.
Which is, and then in there is the actual skill itself. And then any other reference files or templates or whatever that skill might need to run.
So quick prompt is what? How interesting.
So so as a prompt, that's what you could use.
Let's just keep this stuff and we'll look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all great. Okay. Is this important?
I think we'd have to look at the skill because the skill.
Oh, I think this is a sample prompt. Is that what it's saying?
That would make sense. Yes.
How to use it. Attach the ledger PDF or OCR text, paste the prompt from quick prompt, ask to run the skill, and write output into submissions. So, okay. And now let's see, what did we get?
Right.
This is the part that's always so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Is, okay, so we've got a skill. It's got a ledger, CSV classifier, convert HOA account into normalized CSV rows. Do not use for legal advice, accounting advice. Okay.
So that section's important, right?
Yeah.
The header part of a skill, it has to have a name. That name has to match the folder it's sitting in. And it has to have a description because that's how the LLM or the agent is going to know whether to bring this in or not based on what you've asked it. And then it starts to define out the skill. And typically there's some kind of an overview statement, classifier skill, what does it do? When to use the skill is something else I typically see inside of there when it goes ahead and creates them. It also can have a section that says when not to use this skill, right? There might be certain occasions where you don't want to do that. Then required input. So what are the things the skill needs to have in order for this to run? Obviously, having that PDF ledger is important. So there are different input pieces there. Let's see what else we got as we scroll down. And then the output. What is the skill going to, as part of this, what this skill does, what's going to get returned?
Right.
And then you see there, we also have the classification rules that right now are living inside of our skill, but in the future could live somewhere else.
Right. So it might be okay for me to leave it here for now, but then in the future, like you said, if there was some second skill, because I could see another way I want to do this is I would like to see if I can figure out how to take, I mean, heck, I don't know how far to go automating it. It could be interesting to take a voicemail audio. I'm not 100% sure how this gets ingested yet, but my thinking is this, I know this, another attorney who clearly is embracing agents in some way, and is constantly like hitting some button on his phone and just talking into it. Now, I don't think this is producing any work product, but I think what it is doing is it's getting to-dos set up.
Yeah.
Whether it's even for him or assistants.
Sure.
And it just does it. And it's just like, okay, don't forget, we have to send something. I just talked to the client. Sorry, I got to use the right term. Just talked to the client and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Can we have, I'm making all this up. Can we have Anna write the pleading? And I think it goes ahead and like starts sending emails or basically saying, what instead might have had to have been a phone call or an email or something. So I'm wondering if I can get to, but that might be a different skill to operate on audio work, because it's possible that I could see in some future that, like right now, we basically are letting Copilot go ahead and choose models, but we might find a model that's really good at breaking down documents and say, now we're going to have an agent and the agent's going to use that model. And that way it's just going to be targeted. You might do the same thing with, well, I'm an agent. Like for example, I know there's like the Whisper model, which is, hey, I'm pretty good at listening to audio. So, so I'm going to listen to voicemails and but they're going to share commonalities.
Right.
And whether that's skills or instructions, I guess, remains to be seen. So I'm wondering if I should ask Copilot to do something now, which is get it to say, listen, this is great, but I need to modify the skill so that the classifications are only these types. And just see what it does.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. This is, at least right now, this is how we've been doing the creation of skills. You know, it starts as a conversation to solve a problem. Like, that's great. How do I take what we just did and make it repeatable? And that's exporting it out to a skill. So we're on the pro code side of things, right? So we're using GitHub Copilot inside of VS Code. There are other tools in the Microsoft space, specifically when you think about moving, that are more business oriented. Things like GitHub or M365 Copilot or Copilot Cowork, that as part of them actually help you define the skill as well. So, or export out to skill, and you get a bunch of personal skills that you've got created. So it seems to be that skills right now seems to be a common layer across all these things, whether you're in pro code or more of the low code business person activity in interacting with them.
Okay. So is there anything else you would suggest is something I've been trying recently, because there's somebody I've been working with does it in all their prompts. Maybe I shouldn't say all their prompts, but very often says, I want to do this thing. And,
Okay.
then, and especially in plan mode, I want to do this thing. Is there anything else you would suggest that we do? And I just think it's interesting. So I'll update the skill to enforce a strict 4-value legal classification and add explicit mapping rules, suggest a couple safeguards. I found the current skill still uses many category labels. I've applied the taxonomy change. The skill now enforces blah, blah, classification. Suggestions I'd recommend next. Okay. Add a second optional column, detailed classification for reporting. Add a simple validator step that rejects output if any row has a classification outside the 4 allowed values. Add 2 to 3 sample fixture ledgers. Oh, look at this. It's already starting to create test ledgers to use.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Which is the place that I wanted to go eventually. Like, I started with complicated ones that were real, and said, I'm really going to need to be able to test this, but I haven't even stopped to think of what are the common scenarios that trip people up. Decide in document 1 explicit policy for annual assessments to use in this legal model. If you want, I can apply. Okay. So let's go ahead and keep it and see what we got.
So did it complete all the tasks?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It basically said add a consistent per row legal classification using exactly 4 buckets. What I find interesting is I wonder what extension is running here that is putting the tooltip text over a skill. I really have no idea.
Hmm.
But I feel like something. Maybe it's just VS Code. I don't know. Okay, so now I'm going to want to do this again, I think.
To kind of test the skill and see how it runs.
Yeah.
Now, did it
so.
give you a new ledger?
Well, there's some samples.
Okay.
That I'm not sure where they are.
Do a refresh, just in case. Oh, okay.
Oh, wait. No, this is the submission CSV. This is the one we already had. Okay, what does it say here? Oh, suggestions I recommend next. Okay.
Go ahead and create.
Hasn't done it yet. Okay.
Tell it to put it in the samples folder.
All right. So yeah, you know, I'd be curious to hear from people that are watching. I'm an old-fashioned chatter from, I mean, I go all the way back to Prodigy and CompuServe and dial-up BBSs. It's very hard for me to shift to a world of talking to the prompt, which I've seen people, they're very successful at it. I'm not saying it doesn't work. And there are even some tooling out there that that uses models. And I think Whisper produces something where basically it goes ahead and massages what you say.
Oh.
So that basically, like, because I know we can do that right now. I can just click the button right now and I can talk to VS Code, but it's going to get my uhs and ums and maybe weirdness.
Mm-hmm.
And if you bring this in, then it massages it and says like, well, okay, you pause there and you probably meant to join these two sentences together. Oh, and you didn't use good grammar, and it turns it into really good prose. I don't know if that's compatible. It might be interesting to add it into Copilot or into VS Code.
Yeah.
I think that could be interesting. So, okay, let's see. Sample fixtures section. Where did you put it?
Under sample, they put it under skills ledger samples.
Oh yeah, thank you. So expected, and then
input.
Yeah, here's the input. I see.
Yeah.
We still have credit here, and there can be only one. Although, I don't know, maybe that's not super important, because the software could always say, hey, a payment is applied the same way credits are.
Okay.
I think maybe what we haven't explained very well is I think you and I are both driving towards the same thing, is we want to take this anything goes input and create a structured output of some type that will be very easy to have the next, to have software import. Software just imports it. And it's cutting out that step of trying to write a complex importer, especially in the case of a PDF, which could be just generated by a human and they just type, and it's not going to be structured. It's not going to be like the old QuickBooks import. It's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yep. No, I think we're marching in the same direction. So I don't think we've defined in the output of the skill what we want that format to be.
No, we could, because we could eventually have, because we've done structured output on the show, we could eventually have it just be like JSON that's importable. Or it could do multiple things. Like, okay, look, do it to CSV. That's fine. Do it to, because then a person can read it more easily, or get this, because they could just open Excel and look at it.
Yeah.
Get this out to JSON, because then it's easier to send to some kind of API or I don't know. I'm not sure yet. Okay. Now, there's a README in here. Look at that. Interesting.
Well, that's fun.
Oh, yeah. And it's telling you what the different samples do. verifies FC prefix mapping to interest charge even with a sparse memo, verifies negative invoice amount, maps to payment. Okay. All right. So I would actually kind of like to run the skill against the original PDF.
So here's the problem with that.
Okay.
Right. And there may not be a complete problem, but it's not going to give you a completely valid confidence inducing result, right? Because you use this structure to define how to convert that structure into something else. If you put that same one back through it, there's a high likelihood that it's just going to work.
Sure.
If you had something different, that's why the samples are kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because you almost want to have a new naive version of the ledger to say, here, go try the same thing on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree that, like, you know, getting one is helpful, but now in some respects, is it almost like it's not the same thing as training, like machine learning.
I'm kind of coming at it from that angle, but you're
Yes.
right. It's not as rigorous as that, but I think those same principles kind of apply. And that, in my mind, that was kind of where I was going down the old Azure ML Studio, where you take 30% or 75% of your data to train and 25% is left. Same idea.
Yeah, I just don't have a lot of samples, but yes, I'll need
exactly.
more. I'll need more, and I think I can get more.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could also, like you said, this is an interesting thing. If I generate samples, how easy is it to generate samples that are not perfect, but they just sort of fall in line because they test the same test cases that you've already identified, and not something like, oh, wait a second, what happened in this ledger? Like, how different is this? So that's an interesting problem. The main reason why we built the skill, or at least tried using that first PDF, is it was like the longest, most complicated one that I had access to at the moment.
Right.
So in any case, all right. So I have this skill that I was just wondering if I ran it again, what I would get.
I mean, you could try it. I mean, the results it gave you were pretty accurate to begin with, right?
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. So create sample ledgers, generate, place sample folders. So I guess it did it. All right. So my question now, though, is I don't want to add anything to context. Here, if we were using an agent, especially now the fact that agent skills are in preview in Foundry, we could, oh gosh, I have been sitting over top of that chat. Thank you. We could,
that's okay.
We could add skills to a Foundry agent now. It's in preview, right? But it's out there, and I want to try and see if we can get that going at some point. But I now want to say, I think what I want to do is I don't want to add this to context. I want to add this to context again. But I wanted to use the skill. Should I expect it to pick it up? See, it's not in the folders that I would have expected. I should still expect it to pick it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so here's how we would know. If you do in the box there, like, all right, so don't have the skill MD as the selected file.
Which I think it's not. I think it's saying enable current file context.
Okay.
So
yeah, just
like
go
that
to the read.
switched it. Sure.
So just do nothing, like just get rid of all that. And at the very beginning, do a /.
Oh, okay.
And if you start typing in ledger, yeah, I don't see it come up. Okay, so here's one reason why it's not sitting in that GitHub folder.
Right.
So if you want to make that easy, you could basically, under samples, add a .github folder, and then let's move the skills into it.
Should I just ask it to do it?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, just tell it, hey, this really needs to belong in a GitHub folder.
But you're right. Yeah, there's the GitHub folders. I wonder if VS Code kind of helps you with this.
That'll be worth seeing. Let's see. That's fine. It's just doing the new ID. Yep.
All right. So now we have GitHub. Interesting. Yeah, skills, ledger, and then the samples are here. I guess that's okay, but the skill MD is here.
That's the important part. Yep. So I think now if you do that / it should show.
Yeah. So I do this. And then would I give it the file, put it in context?
Put the file in context. Yeah, tell it what file you want to do the ledger on.
So that's now in context. I know that this is marked out, but it's just because it says auto doesn't support this file type, even though it figured it out anyway. I wonder if that's all I have to do.
Yeah, it seemed to be from, yeah, give it just, worst thing it'll say, give me a file.
Now, did you say we could figure out what model it decided to use? I think I asked that question, but I don't know if you answered it or if we don't know.
You should.
Oh, look at this. What are you doing?
Why does it run the PowerShell command?
Oh, it wants to import the CSV. No, stop what you're doing.
Yeah, so I think we might need to be a little bit more specific.
Oh, I actually. Okay, let me try this again. And then say ledger. Using the PDF file or
convert this file.
Convert the PDF file to a ledger, CSV based ledger, and call the output file voila.csv. All right. Sure. Because I feel like what it was starting to do was say, let me open the CSV. And it's like, no, don't do that.
That's already been done. Still wants that CSV.
Well, yeah.
Ask it, why are you trying to get that CSV file?
Well, I don't want to, let's not confuse it.
Yeah. It does say it created 2 to-dos. Go ahead and click on that and see what it's doing. No.
No. Stop it. Shortcut. What's wrong with you? Okay, I probably shouldn't mess around. Okay.
You're right.
And
it's still back to the shortcut.
Okay. This is interesting. This is interesting that, what did I say last time? Okay.
Yeah. Only use the file I give you, right?
This is where it gets easy to shake your head, right?
Right.
So we did get a good morning from Chops to you today.
Hey, Chops, how are we doing?
Thank you for joining us. Okay. So that's really interesting that, I've heard the expression used that it's like talking to a 4-year-old sometimes. But
Parenting all over again.
yeah, but I have to admit, I I was impressed that from the prompt we got as far as we did.
Yeah.
Sure. Let's see what we ended up with here. Okay, so interesting that interest type is invoice or payment. I don't recall invoice being one of the types. Classification count. So is this somewhere else? Classification is what I really need to be paying attention to.
Okay. Attorney fee payment.
So I was looking at this,
Mhm.
and that entry type wasn't all that useful. But so I don't believe the first one was actually an attorney fee. So it'll be interesting figuring out how to
Did it
deal
say
with that.
anything?
No, it was nothing. So I think it took a blanket step of like, well, that must have been an attorney fee. It's okay. It doesn't matter, because another interesting piece to add to the skill is to say that we only need line items from the point after the balance was 0, if any.
Okay.
Because I don't actually need it from here above. Everything was up to date at that point.
Right. There were no issues.
This is where it really starts. But this assessment is not an attorney fee. That's incorrect. And then late fee, finance charge is fine. That's correct. Assessment for postage expenses associated with, I actually don't know what that is. Admin fees associated with the cost of collection. Those might have to be interesting to think about what those are. Finance charge, fine. It did really great on finance charges, probably because we've mentioned it in the skill, because I mentioned it in my early prompt. I'm pretty sure it's mentioned in the skill. So is part of the trick going to be, oh yeah, like it says it right here. If memo contains finance charge interest, or interest charge classification as interest charge. But then the attorney fee is being used as a catch-all, and that's not correct. So it would have to be taught how to figure out dues and other assessments. So
yeah. So there's some, not that this was a one-shot thing.
No.
In a first pass, it certainly is a good part of the way there, 75, 80%, right? Now we've got to go through and do those little, hey, this line is wrong. Look, maybe it refers back to the description, that we could point it to the description, helping it to understand what that is, or, for each line item, essentially, because there's a description there for some of the ones as you start getting into a more complex scenario. I don't know, but that's part of the iteration around this.
Right, exactly. And then I definitely need to have lots of different examples, because the various examples, I think they do two things. These that it's creating feel a little bit like unit tests, in that I'm going to test a small thing, which is fine. So like, you might get text like this, and then the output. And so the trick here would be to start trying to figure out how do you teach it? How do you teach? I don't know if I'm saying how do you create the skill so that it can recognize, or do a better job of recognizing, what's a late fee, what's a finance charge, or an interest charge, what's an attorney's fee, and then this is clearly just the dues.
Yeah.
What else could be interesting in using the skill is, it doesn't have to live in the dark so much.
Mm-hmm.
Each HOA has probably rules that might help here. For example, mine assesses dues quarterly. If that was just in there somehow so that it knew, I would like to believe that that would help it figure out like, well, this other thing is probably not dues because it's at some weird time.
Yeah.
Or could you have it grill you and ask you some questions to help sort out the spots? Like, so I went through this, but I'm not sure what this one is. Can you help me? And the reason why this is important to me, and I may have said it earlier, is you could go about creating this importer. And if there's a multi-page import to be done, and there's even one mistake, in fact, it's worse if there's one mistake.
Right.
Now you've created this needle in a haystack situation where someone has to go verify it anyways, and verify it in a time-consuming manner. It's one thing to say, hey, you should always check the output. That's fine. Yeah. But if it takes just as much time to verify it as it would have to just enter it line by line, then I'm not helping.
Yeah, true.
So I would like to figure out how, we trust the human that we might teach to do this.
Mm-hmm.
We just trust them. And then if they make a mistake, they get disciplined or something. We don't really have that. Not only, we just don't have that option. So what I would like is to make that human's time more used more effectively, because they don't have to run through 4, 5, 6, 10 pages of a ledger. It's like, hey, this is done, and here's what I came up with, and this, and you can have a degree of trust with it that I think we develop with all software and with all people. We develop a degree of trust until proven otherwise that there was a bug.
Yeah. And some of that is going to, so I guess there's a bunch of different ways that we can kind of handle that. We can certainly talk through some of those things, right? Going, back to other examples, maybe this is a double entry, or the process is run twice with different models, same skill, different models, right? And have those output files compared to see if there's a difference between them, right? If they're all the same, there's a pretty high likelihood that the process worked, or it made the same mistake across both of them. And that, in addition to that, once you bring that data into the application itself and it starts to run through the numbers, something's going to not tie out if something's in there wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just
absolutely.
Just thinking of where we might take this and how we can, take advantage of things that are the non-deterministic side. Hey, I just got this thing. I want to get it in because that's the process it does well. And then once that starts to filter into the part that's more deterministic, your code, those errors are going to bounce out somehow. As long as your code's good.
No, absolutely. So there used to be like what used to be in here? Oh, okay. Like if I add, what's kind of neat here is, so we've got a balance of like 8, 14, is that I could say, okay, we're doing a payment, and the payments, this has been so long ago now that I guess the payments in October 29th is fine. And we'll have a payment of like 750. And say that this is like a check number, I guess, but whatever, is that it would come through and say, okay, here's how I am allocating the payment, which I thought was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was building this app, I was building it with some skills and things that I'm trying to standardize on. And I didn't ask for this. I basically said, hey, I need an add row function that I can use to apply to basically quickly add a fee, an attorney fee, an assessment, and so on. And I didn't at all say, when you add a payment, go ahead and give me a preview of how the payment will be allocated.
Right.
And what was interesting about that is this was like one of the most praised features when it was getting used. Even before I apply it, I can adjust the date, which really doesn't do anything other than let me come back here and say, whoops, I didn't mean the 29th, I meant the 27th. And it goes, oh, actually, no, that didn't work. Well, it doesn't matter. So the point is it added 750, which applied 116 to, I'm sorry, it applied 268.43 to the principal, and then the attorney's fees were paid, interest was paid, and that's where we are. So I found that really interesting. Now look, some things that it did, I have to go through and play with the design, because it just threw some stuff out there.
Right.
I like how it automatically decided that we're in an emoji world, so therefore every line item should have an emoji. But this could be cleaned up a little bit, and I could certainly clean up a lot of this stuff. But it was interesting just to see how quickly I could get a like a prototype out. And if anybody's wondering how is this working, this is Blazor, and
Nice.
a lot of little Razor components to make this work. We've got our own grid, and the payment preview dialog is a it's a Blazor component. So I was pretty happy with that. Although the first couple times that it built it, I kind of went back and tried to guide it towards the application architecture that I would be happy with.
Mm-hmm.
And it did okay. Like, for example, a lot of this code was a little bit more just embedded, but now it's pulled out. I'm actually kind of wondering long term how to do common things like this. Like, should I move it into a library or just leave it alone? It was hard to say, but and then it's got a battery of tests too. So
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Yeah, it's. I mean, considering that this was not even really a weekend, it was a good learning project for me. I think there's certainly more I could do, and it's things I want to share on this show
Mm-hmm.
to create skills that represent me as a developer, and probably create agents that would act as maybe verification gates, validation gates to say, okay, you can't proceed from here unless it passes this test of whatever kind. So I still have some work to do there, but I would like for this to be able to import our output from, we were talking about this agent. I would like for it to be able to import this. So I guess really the trick is a skill that gets us skills that get us to standard output. And then that's standard input for the application. So that way the application can remain like deterministic and doesn't have to even rely on LLMs or models or anything.
Right. Which is a good thing.
Yeah, that was pretty nice. I was impressed with our first pass skill here, even though certainly it needs some work. I'm impressed with it, and I'm impressed that we had Copilot help us build it. So is it turtles all the way down?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, right? Don't try and start from scratch building this out, right? Work through the problem that you're trying to solve and let Copilot help build that skill for you, and then refine it, right? It's human readable. You can go through something, I didn't quite get that right. It's really this, or let's throw a couple of extra examples around what the categorization is so it understands, hey, these things relate to this category versus these other things relate to something else.
Yeah. So this isn't in a repo that I can share just yet, but I would like to get it there, because I think as we get closer, it would be a useful exercise to see, like, what's what I liked about the pizza bot is let's get closer to real world examples.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with the examples that are out there, but I've always felt as a developer, sometimes I watch samples or demos and they're good, but I think like, okay, I'm in the real world now. The real world's more complicated. My demo's never that simple. Everybody always thinks like we're unique. So I'm definitely looking forward to figuring that out. But this was cool. This was a really neat exercise that we didn't really plan, other than like, let's try it.
Yeah.
And hopefully it was valuable to you. So if folks out there have done something similar, if you've done anything similar to this, let us know in the comments. If you have some suggestions as to how we could be proceeding that might be better or to get better results, I'd love to hear it. We definitely learn from you folks as well. So,
Yeah.
but thanks, Rich, for guiding me through that. It's something I think I've talked to you about for a while, and it was like, well, why don't we, instead of trying to write this go from scratch, why don't we see if we can guide it?
Yeah. No, it was fun. It's good to see that come have a good result there. So something we can certainly continue to iterate and improve on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. So here we are in the heart of summer. If you're in the US, I guess we're all about halfway through, maybe not quite, maybe a little bit over. And so don't tell the kids yet that school is coming up soon, but we'll be back in session in about a month. So, but in the meantime, I think we should be able to meet again this week.
Yeah.
And okay, awesome. So, and I don't know for sure. So we're not quite at the point of having an official schedule, but definitely want to thank everybody for joining us. If that's all,
yeah, think
then
so.
I'll lead us out. Thanks again for the help today, Rich, on guiding this. And for Rich, I'm Chris, and we will see you all next time on the Dev Talk Show.